So this is about Royal Enfield, and before I get into that specifics, I really want to tell you a little about the industry. In India, we sell about 15 million motorcycles. India is the second largest motorcycle market. China is the number one. And the market leader is Hero MotoCorp, and they sell about 6 million motorcycles. I think they are the second largest global motorcycle manufacturer, next only to Honda. Now it has become number one. So we have got Bajaj, which started with scooters, then really had great success in motorcycle. And the best part about Bajaj is they export more than what they sell in India. And that's the choice that they've really made. And the story that we're really going to talk today is about Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield was basically set up in Britain in 1909. Okay, and I think they were the second motorcycle company ever. And the Bullet brand had the longest run of being continuously produced in the whole world. Even because sometimes, you got a war effort and then motorcycle manufacturing may really stop for certain other brands. We have everybody in India. We've got various subcategories: economy segment, executive segment, power segment. There are different leaders in these segments, and every international brand worth its salt, they're all here. This is it's a very competitive market, and we really are going to talk about what is an automobile company trying to do with licensing. How are they really looking at one specific company? So let's start with the market leader, Hero Motors. Hero Motors, they are what they are today. So what does Hero brand stand for? First of all, they are very economical, they're very reliable, they are the most fuel efficient, and they have the widest network of sale and service point. That is really making them to sell 6 million plus motorcycles, and they're growing even at this high level at some 15-20% year on year. The easiest thing for Hero Motor to extend the brand is to first get into helmets. That's what everybody does, right? If you're a motorcyclist, for your own safety, as well as the law demands that you really wear a helmet, all motorcycle manufacturers will really have a helmet. They did, and it was very successful. The second thing that they really did is to say that, okay, like since we are the market leader, why can't we really make a t-shirt? You buy a Benetton t-shirt, it will cost you some 500-600 rupees. They really made very good quality t-shirt for 300 rupees, 299, and they didn't really succeed. And they couldn't really figure out, saying that why they're not really successful. The consumers are not really seeing Hero brand lending itself into fashion category. So finally, after a lot of trouble, they had to give the t-shirt free for everybody who bought a Hero. I'm really talking from, it is not that you're the most popular bike, it is not that your brand is the most recognized brand in your category, it is not that you're very successful in a category called helmet, that you really decide to really extend the brand to other categories, and you really find that the brand doesn't really lend itself to extend to other categories. This is basically a learning. But the story is not about Royal Enfield. Have other companies done extended? Is there a motorcycle company which is big into apparel, for example, into fashion? Of course, there are global examples. Harley Davidson is basically a great example. You can go to their website, you really find that any imaginable category, they have a product, and some of them are licensed. In fact, if you are staying in Delhi, you can really go to Promenade Mall, if I'm not mistaken. They got maybe about 2,000 square feet store. They must be paying whopping rent. And they got 2-3 bikes. It is not to sell bikes, it is to sell the merchandise. And so, but the story is not about Harley Davidson. I really want to talk about a story, and which is not, so for Harley Davidson, it is easy. Because Harley Davidson stands for certain great values, which is to say about power and adventure, and for a biker who's really wanting to enjoy biking, Harley Davidson is basically up there. So that value, the emotional connect that Martin was talking about is very much there, and it is easy for them to extend. Let's talk about a category for a brand where it is not that obvious. And this is basically now an Indian brand, and which is basically what I relate to. As I said, the company used to be called Enfield India. It was 1909, and the company doesn't really have an existence in Britain. They really sold all their equipment, lock, stock and barrel. The company came into India because they got an order for 350 Bullet from the military. Because military operates in, mountainous region, Ladakh and whatnot, and this bike would really survive in that kind of And so one of the conditions is that you need to assemble it here. So they really found a partner in Chennai called Enfield India. And somewhere around 1960, they decided to close their UK. They sold it in an auction, and then like a lot of the equipment came, and that's how really Royal Enfield had a torturous journey in India. It was okay, but then there are other brands which are cheaper, and the smallest bike that they had was 350. The demand in India was more 100, 150, 125 cc, so on. 1990, Acer Group bought, and they really took 4-5 years to really stabilize the operation, and it was what is called a BFR case, which means that it was bankrupt. It had to be salvaged, and Acer basically put their heart and soul, salvaged it, and now it is one of the fastest growing motorcycle companies in India, and it has got a strong heritage. It's a heritage brand. And what does it really stand for? Obviously, it stands for anybody who's interested in adventure, anybody is interested in biking for pleasure, biking for leisure, okay, he will really identify, any biker here would really say, okay, I wish I really want. And if you really look at it, it really also has got a heritage because it evokes certain retro and heritage kind of a brand. Let's talk about what did they do first. Easiest thing to do is to really get into helmets. Obviously, you're not really competing at the price point. You're not really selling a helmet for 450 rupees. You can really get a lot of them on the footpaths. When they started, they said, no, our kind of a biker is really looking for the best that helmet could offer. And the best that they could really offer came at about 3,500 rupees. But of course, there is a market dynamics, there is a demand and supply. So at 3,500, you can really do so much. And it was essentially sold only through the 250 odd motorcycle stores that they had. There is a new set of people who basically said, okay, like we need to really participate in the larger market. They really re-engineered, and then they really increased the production, and then they really brought now you can really get a Bullet Royal Enfield helmet for 1,800 onwards, going up to maybe about 4,000 or so. Their volume went up 4 to 6 times in a matter of 1 year. So this category, as I said, this is not licensed. This is basically what they do it themselves. They have investment in a factory which is making helmet, and they buy the helmet, they really sell, and basically it's a line extension. It is basically extending the brand value of Royal Enfield into helmet, which is a different product category, like what Martin was talking about, PNG getting into the mops and so on, from being a cleaning liquid. That is what it is, but it is line extension. The next EC category, which is saying that if you are riding in winter and if in cold climate, you really need leather gloves. Nothing more I need to say. So they basically are into procuring leather gloves with their brand name and selling through their network. The picture is not clear. This is boots. So they're not into fashion shoes. This is basically a footwear designed for a biker, and which is basically has got a lot of functional aspects as well as styling aspects. This is again a line extension for Royal Enfield. It is not really licensing still. Okay, now they're basically getting into fashion. They're not really making one formal shirt like a Louis Philippe or Arrow or whatever, because the brand doesn't really lend itself in that kind of extension. What they're really saying that what does a biker need? He needs to really cover his chest from winds which are blowing. So thing to do is to basically wind cheater or leather jacket or whatever. This is again line extension for them, not licensing asset. More images of leather jackets. This is basically like a muffler, or basically something to protect your throat. All these are line extensions related to the core product category, which is motorcycle. These are all accessories for a motorcycle rider. This is the first time that they basically are getting into fashion business, because at the end of it, there are some 20 different brands, international brands, local brands for jeans and so on, trousers. But they got into it basically just to dip their feet in water and see whether the brand can really extend into this category. They're not really doing a formal trouser, they're not really doing a formal jacket or whatever. They are basically saying, okay, let's try. And the results are basically mixed, and they're basically trying to figure out, saying that what is it that they need to do to make sure that they really get critical mass and volume. This is basically into fashion. At the end of it, there are as I said, 100 brands into t-shirts. But then this is basically to tap into people who have an affinity for the brand, and basically they're saying that, okay, I'm different than somebody who goes to an office and sits in front of a computer and then spends 10 hours a day. I'm different, so this is an outdoor kind of a guy. So in terms of the look and feel, in terms of the execution is basically a little outdoor. And finally, lapel pins. Basically, if somebody really wants to really proclaim saying that he is basically outdoorish type and he is a Royal Enfield fan, you can really pin it. So this is where they have come. Till now, they are not really licensed. Now they are really thinking of licensing. I will really tell you why. So then one of the accessories which is missing in their portfolio is saying that, okay, you also need to really protect your eye, because at that speed, when you're traveling at 120, 150, there's so much of wind and there's so much of dust and so much of insects which really come and then hit you. You need to really have a goggle to really make sure that you're protected. Is also to protect from sun and irradiation and so on. There was some product which they really liked, and then they really picked it up, and then they really are selling it currently through their stores. Fact of the matter, this is a category which is specialized category. The consumer needs are very different. The Enfield customer is saying, listen, this is fine, but I really need to have at least some 15, 20 designs to really choose from. Don't really give me one and then expect me to pick. Okay, like that. People are picking up, but that is maybe 1/10 of the possibility. So they are saying that, okay, they don't really have the category expertise for eyewear. Eyewear is a notorious category. It is notorious category is only because of the fact that what you introduced in one season doesn't really sell the next season. The obsolescence is very high. The minimum order quantity that you really need when you go to a manufacturer, he would say, listen, unless you really have 15, 20,000 pieces of a single design, because there's a lot of molding which is involved, you really find that this is and plus in terms of the distribution, it is not only sold in a Shoppers Stop or in whatever, it is also sold in optician, trade and so on. If you really look at it, this is a specialized category, and Royal Enfield had come to the conclusion saying that they cannot really do it themselves. Their first preference is to do it themselves, and there is a reason why they really want to do it themselves is only because of the fact they do not really want to lose control of how the brand is extended in other categories. They feel that they are the best to really control that process, and so far in the last 7-8 years, everything that they've really done in terms of line extension has been done by them. This is the first time they realize the limitation. At the end, core, they are an engineering company. At the core, they are basically a motorcycle company. They are not a fashion company. Especially this category is forcing them to really say, okay, you really reached your limit of what you can do yourself. I think you need to really take the support of licensing model, as well as licensees who are really experts in that category, and probably agents who can really help you really find the right licensee. Okay, I think we really talked about. These are the reasons why really they are looking to license now. Same thing is true for watch. There are 100 watch brands in India, 50 of them are from Swiss, and there are some fashion brand dime a dozen. So why would anybody want the 101st watch brand? But there is basically certain core target audience who don't really mind if the product execution is basically true to the brand, and there is an opportunity. And watch is also a category which needs certain after sale service. Something can really go wrong with your strap, or something can go wrong with your battery, something can go wrong with the quartz movement or whatever, or if you're into automatic and mechanical movement. These are certain category issues that Royal Enfield is not really capable of handling themselves. So they really want to align with a partner who is a licensee, who is an expert in the category, who can really do what they really want to do in this category. And stationery. It's a motorcycle company. What are they doing in stationery? But then every motorbike, he may really want to keep a log, a personal diary of his adventure and trip and whatnot. And so if you really design a stationery which is relevant, which appeals to him, why not? Sometimes he really buy tons of those stationery and then he will really write his whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is that there is an opportunity. All of these are categories that they really want to use licensing model to enter. Phone covers, I'm not really going to spend too much time. Okay, this is probably the last. They're also like, if Harley Davidson can have an exclusive store, why not Royal Enfield? And they have a couple of prototype stores. and they're really picking up learning as to what works, what doesn't really work. They're really refining the retail concept right from what should be the ideal size, where should it be located, and what kind of product category should we really put, what is the price point, who is the target audience, what is it that is really looking. And when you are really, and most of you who are from India, they know that 90% of the Indian retail businesses lose money. They lose money for various reasons, right from the rentals being high to the fact that the cost of funding is being high. And they believe that the touch, so once a guy has bought a motorcycle, for the next 5-10 years he doesn't really have to come to you to buy another motorcycle, but of course he can come to you for regular service. If you really want to keep the dialogue, if you really want to keep the touch point alive, you really need to have a lot of areas where, like the retail store where you're really selling merchandise, and they really believe that having a network of Royal Enfield stores is basically going to build the brand. Also create barriers for a lot of other, Harley Davidson is here, Triumph is here. As I said, anybody and everybody is thinking that India is a large market. So they need to really build the barriers, and they believe that the licensing business will really give them the emotional connect to their. To scale up the categories available, to really rope in the experts in licensing who can really deliver and make the retail store profitable is basically the reasons why they are really seriously considering licensing. And they've also realized saying that licensing business is basically how to select the right licensee. So some of you, if you're a retailer, when I joined retailing 25 years back, rents used to be 20 rupees, 30 rupees. Even then, people used to say that the three most important aspects of retailing, if you want to succeed, is location has to be right, location has to be right, location has to be right. I joined Titan and I was thrust into a role of franchising the retail concept, and I really felt that maybe they were wrong. I said, to me, the most important decision that I had to take was finding the right partner, finding the right franchisee. Finding a franchisee who believes in the brand, finding the right franchisee who understands basically the retail concept and willing to make that investment and not really crying on your shoulder if something doesn't really go wrong. He really finds his own solution, saying that how can I really improve sale and profitability rather than really crying on the shoulder of the franchisor. Titan was a company who refused to give anybody a minimum guarantee, which is basically an assurance saying that your retail business will be profitable. We said, okay, we have got certain stores running, which are company stores, you are free to go. Look at the profitability. If you think that that is the right concept in your location, you please come and then invest. We are not giving any minimum guarantee. Similarly, finding the right licensee is important. And if you have not done that, it is better to really employ the services of a licensing agent who has done that hundreds of times. In my life, over the last 25 years, I must have really selected more than 200 licensees and franchisees. To select those 200 people, probably I must have met 2,000 people. I used to say, my famous statement is that my job is to say no rather than say yes to a potential partner. Because many times, potential partners, they're good, but they may not be the right partner for you. They come with an expectation which is very different. Your expectations are different. And the most important decision that you ever take is basically selecting the right licensee or right partner. If you make a mistake, any amount of you having a fantastic brand and having a fantastic range that you can really develop and then help him to support, all of that is secondary. Getting the partner right is important. Why you really need an agent is also because of the fact, I don't know how many of you know a guy called Malcolm Gladwell. If you've not really heard of him, please Google him and then read all his books. One of the books that he really talks about is a book called Outliers. And his basic premise is very simple. We know we're all cricket crazy country and we know that Sachin is great. Let me tell you, in this 1.25 billion people in India, there are at least hundreds Sachins in terms of capability and skill. But they didn't really make it, only Sachin made it. And the reason, according to Malcolm Gladwell, and I agree, which is why I'm quoting him, is that Sachin had the opportunity to practice his craft at the highest level for quite close to about 25 years. He got into the Indian team at 16, he retired at 40 or whatever, so he had 25. If he didn't play a match for India, it is because he was hurt or injured, not because he was dropped. And he had that opportunity to really practice his craft. And Malcolm Gladwell's premise is simple. If you have an expert who really practices his craft for a minimum 10,000 hours, he will really become from good, he will become great. And there are agents who have really practiced in India more than 10,000 hours, and that is why you really need an agent. So that's basically what I really wanted to share with you. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.